I remember hearing about you from the time I was a small kid.
Oh, no.
A young kid in West Denver.
Right.
Okay. I'm not that much younger.
Okay, folks, thank you so much. Good afternoon, and welcome, folks, to our show.
Oh, this is going to be great, Charlie. I thank everybody for joining us here today. My name is Henry Archuleta, and I'm bringing you the forum. It's a social forum for all the events that are going on in the world today. And we're going to touch on police killings, kids in cages, Border Patrol, ICE, military, resources, native reservations. And I've got a lot of good people in here to talk about that. Racism in workplaces, Charlie, home purchasing, school, universities, everything that we devalue humans that are living on this earth and how we have to live by this racism that's been going on. So it's been brought up, and as living in a society on stolen lands built on the backs of Africans, Mexicans, and Asians.
Mm-hmm.
And these name changes are coming about for these very wealthy sports teams, and the statues that depict racism, they're all coming down. And you see this big change going on, Charlie. And I've got a host of wonderful people here to talk all about it. And that's what we like here at KUHS. It's never been done like here in Denver, and we have this conduit in which to progress with this. And you're going to help me here, Charlie. We're living in a pandemic that affects all humans right now, right?
It does.
And it's affecting those with less economic fortunes, those in prisons and nursing homes, those on reservations. And how can this style of government allow this to go on?
Mm-hmm.
And we're all wondering, everybody's wondering. And so that's why we've got this forum together. It stated those who control the money rules the world. And it seems like that's what's going on, right? Whoever controls the money flow rules the world. So from there, here on in, Charlie, I'm going to allow you to take it from here, and we'll talk more about it. And let's give your spiel like we talked about.
My spiel?
See you later.
Well, thank you, Henry. I really appreciate the introduction. And folks, I'm honored to be the host and the co-moderator for this forum today as we talk about some very important issues about, the Latino, the Chicano, the Asian, and the Native American issues. I mean, this is a social forum. This is a year of enormous transformation and change. We are being put through the crucible. I'm being walked through this initiation. The entire country and world is being initiated into a new way of being, and a lot of things have to fall by the wayside. But before it can fall by the wayside, the things that we haven't quite addressed clearly, honestly, genuinely, sincerely, authentically, that has to raise up. That has to come and bubble up to the surface so that we can see it for what it is, understand it, know it, and then be able to deal with it in a healthy way that helps to heal it for people so that we can move forward in a direction that embraces all peoples from all walks of life. One of the things that I tell my people, and when I do my workshops and I do my radio show and TV show here, I always tell people that there's nothing you can do about yesterday. Yesterday's done. The past is over. You can't wish it away, can't hope it away, can't pray it away, can't kick it away, can't do nothing. But you can do is you can start today. You can start today to be a better man and a better woman and a better human being and a better citizen. And how we do that, and we heal the past in the present. We don't heal it by fighting and arguing and being divisive and being separative. We heal it by acknowledging it and seeing the truth. We have to start speaking the truth, folks. I mean, that is so imperative. We live, and unfortunately, we've been bombarded by a culture of lies. Lies are coming everywhere, and so it is so important for us to be able to acknowledge the truth that people have lived and have suffered through and have gone through, that we turned a blind eye to for whatever reason. Maybe it was the people who had the power and the money to control us, or maybe it was systemic racism that had blocked us from seeing the truth about things. Or maybe it was, the treaties that we completely, disavowed and did not live up to our promises with the Native American tribes. And, there's on and on. We've got to be able to look at that so that the dream of America can be for all people. I mean, it is a transformative year. I mean, it started with the pandemic. And it started, well, it could have started earlier if you, it depends on, with where your political leanings are. But it started in 2020 with the pandemic and how it just has, taken control. And every facet of our life has now been changed and altered by this virus. And now we're dealing with the protests that have come up because of the systemic racism that has been part of our culture and society for too long. And now that is bubbled up to the surface. And on my most recent show, 2 shows back, we talked about this with my wonderful guest, Deanna Nicole Baxter, about how we can heal the racism that has been going on between Black Americans and white Americans, and that we need to respect one another. If I respect you, you respect me, we're on the right path. It's about integrity and living that integrity and living that truth. And also about standing up for equal justice, and it also being able to stand for to elevate ourselves, to elevate. And so all of these things are important as we move forward. And now we want to bring in the Latin American community, the Native American community, and the Asian American community to our discussion. And now I want to be able to start bringing in and introducing some of the guests. And as far as I know, let me just check something here real quick. I think I got a little bit of music on. Sometimes that happens when you're doing a live show. You can make some mistakes sometimes. Or you just added a little background music. It was just a little bit of background music. And so anyway, folks, we want to have an honest forum here talking about the issues that are affecting our other American brothers and sisters. And so I'd first off like to introduce all of my guests. I want to thank all of them first for being here. It is such an honor to have all of you on with us and to talk about these issues and that are so important. And we need to hear this. We need to listen. We need to understand. And so first of all, I'd like to invite Levi Rickards to the show. And he's the editor at the Native News Online and publisher editor at nativenewsonline.net. Levi, could you share just a few words with us about your background and where you come from, sir?
Well, I'm honored to be here tonight. I am Levi Rickard, the publisher editor of Native News Online, as you said, and I am a tribal citizen of the Prairie Band Potawatomi Nation. That's based in Marietta, Kansas, although I live in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I'm happy to be here today. I always enjoy it when Native Americans are brought into the conversation. So often we're the forgotten minority, so to speak, in America, and there's so many things that are happening right now that relate to Native Americans. The Washington NFL team dropping a name a couple of days ago, the court decision that's sitting around the Dakota Access Pipeline. I think that happened 2 weeks ago, and it's been ordered to be closed down. Serious, very significant Supreme Court case we heard last week was settled in favor of Native people. So whereas we live in difficult times, as you were saying, the pandemic and the president showing up at Mount Rushmore, here we are today able to celebrate at least 3 victories, small victories, and I'm happy to report that tonight. So I'm happy to be part of this conversation.
Thank you, Levi. And yeah, those are some historic changes. I mean, the fact that the Oklahoma Territory has been recognized. East Oklahoma Territory belongs to the tribes that were there, the Cherokee and the Creek that had originally been promised those lands. And then the pipeline is that was blocked. I mean, that was a huge thing for the Native American community. And we need to stand up for our Native American brothers and sisters. I think the Navajo Nation right now, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on this, Levi, they're suffering pretty direly from the pandemic itself, that they're experiencing high numbers of infections. Am I wrong in that?
No, you are 100% correct, and unfortunately, that is happening in the Navajo Nation now. I think last night we reported there were like 8,200 cases, and over 400 people have died out there at Navajo. And during the pandemic, it's certainly we've been able to see the situation exasperated. The idea that 40% of the people who live on the reservation have no running water and lack electricity. Living third world living conditions, and so I really hope that as the word chaos translates into some cultures into the word opportunity, maybe with all the chaos of surrounding the pandemic, there can be some opportunity for Americans to really pay attention to what's going on with our native people in this country, our first people, the first people of this land, who have been treated very, very wrong and, as I said, living in third world living conditions. So I'm looking at opportunities, and that's what we try to do, strive every day at Native News Online, to be very passionate about helping our people to see the progress of Native people all across Indian country.
That's amazing. Oh, that's, wow. And I think that's so incredibly important in today and time to give people that hope and that genuine feeling like somebody's looking out for us. Somebody wants to help us. They really want to hear us this time because they haven't. And it's been an injustice, a social injustice that has been going on for too long. I'd love to bring in Marty, if you could come in. Marty Two Balls. He's a Native American political cartoonist and artist from the Ogallala Lakota Indian tribe. Marty, could you share just a couple words with us about where your background is and just add to the conversation that we've already begun about our First Peoples?
Hello. Hello, I'm Marty Tubals. As I said before, I'm an artist, freelancer, and a political cartoonist. My background is in design work, commercial art, that type of thing. I love the intellectual facets, basically journalism, working for newspapers and things of that nature. I spent the majority of my career in newspapers as an editor, graphics editor of Rapid City Journal in South Dakota, and graphics editor of the Argus Leader in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, two of the largest newspapers in South Dakota, which is where I'm from originally. I currently live here in Santa Fe, Mexico, to be closer to the native market. Been doing this for about 38 years. Basically doing cartoons every week since about 20 years now. My tribe is Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, where I'm originally from. Basically it.
It's seeing the importance of as a political cartoonist, you must take a long-ranged look at what's going on in our culture and in our world, and then trying to be able to condense that into figures and people and a message that is satirical, but at the same time carries a deeper message behind that. How did you decide to become a political cartoonist? What was your drive behind that?
Well, basically came from the fact that people don't like to read. I used to.
It's true. That's true. Yeah.
I used to do radio editorials, and I found that people didn't like to read those. They'd be more apt to look at a cartoon and get more of the issue from that than if I wrote 500 words or an essay or something. And so I found part of this medium at a young age. My uncles used to draw each other, and they always laughed and carried on stories about these cartoons. So as a child, I used to see these cartoons and understand the power of this medium. So as I got older, I studied it as well as painting and whatnot, and kind of did it on the side. And that's what I still do today. So it's not my main thing, but it's something I like to do. I'm carried by two newspapers currently, Mandela Day, so Tribal newspaper and the Reporter Times, South Dakota. And it's just keeping me busy.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you, sir, for being here today and for joining us. I would love to get my other guests, because we're going to get into some of the meat here shortly, but I want to make sure I introduce everybody who's on our show today. And next, if I could get Nita Gonzalez, which is Corky Gonzalez's daughter, head of the Escuela Taltaloco, and many other involvements in the community, correct?
Yes.
Nita, if you could introduce yourself. A few? Yeah, just a few. Could you let everybody know a little bit about your history and background, please?
Well, you started it. Again, thank you for the invitation. I'm very humbled and honored to be on this forum with my colleagues that are part of this. So I'm a Chicana, born and raised in East Denver. I am not Latina. I don't do Latin. I'm not Italian. I'm not Hispanic, because to say I'm Spanish says I deny my indigenous grandmother, and I will not do that. And the Chicano movement is, my father, Jorge Gonzalez, continues to be my guide, my mentor, greatest teacher I ever saw, convinced me to run the school he started for 40 years, Escuela Tlatelolco, that taught history from here out, not from Europe in, from pre-Columbian history of First Nations people. In fact, our classes were named after Lakota, Hopi, Mexica, Zapoteca. So, and we also were raised in knowing this history. In his poem, I Am Joaquin, he found, he was a cultural archaeologist. He had to dig for his own culture, for his own literature, for his own traditions and song. And what he found out is that we had denied our own indigenous self. We wanted to be more Spanish than we wanted to be Indian. In Mexico or in the United States, we wanted to be more white than we wanted to be of color. And it was through the Chicano movement that we embraced who we were as peoples of these two hemispheres. I'm proud of that. Yes, we still speak the oppressor's language, English and Spanish. I don't know my indigenous language at all.
Right.
Robert Cross helps me by speaking in Lakota, which is helpful when he does ceremony and prayer. But I'm a Chicana, and I don't say I'm anything else. And a Chicana is someone, or Chicano is someone who understands their history, their culture, and also understands the oppression we've been subjected to, and the historical amnesia we have been subjected to. Talk about trauma. That traumatizes whole generations when you don't know who you are or don't want to be who you really should be. Right?
Absolutely.
And recognizing that.
Yes.
So I honored to be here. I'm still very much involved. I sit on the Four Winds American Indian Council Board. I've been very involved over the years in trying to get rid of Columbus, arrested several times, gassed several times, and finally we passed a bill thanks to our Chicano and Chicano legislators who this time got elected and passed a bill to get rid of Columbus in the state that started that holiday. So I'm proud to say
that's amazing. Which state was that? Which state was that? Was the first one that did?
Colorado.
Was it Colorado? Oh, wow.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
We were the first state that honored Columbus. So that's gone. And I am going to say this. I am grateful and thankful to people, young, old, of many colors, who marched in the streets to bring all of this to the forefront. I, quite frankly, thought I'd never see this happen in my day and age. So I'm grateful. Yeah. I'm appreciative. I'm thankful about the Supreme Court ruling. I'm thankful about seeing this shift that's going on. But it came through what? It came through people standing up, people power.
Yes.
Be not afraid. There's a saying in French that in France, the government's afraid of its people, but in the United States, the people were afraid of its government. And that's not true.
No.
But this is not new to us,
Yeah.
not to Indigenous, First Nations people, not to Chicano Mexicanos, not to African Americans. This struggle has been ongoing for centuries.
And I think, with what we see with the protests and the people who have stood up, and we watched what happened with the practically the lynching and the murder of George Floyd. Terry, I'll have you on in just a second. If you give me just a second, and being able to see that, it just brought up to the surface. It was the camel that, excuse me, it was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's exactly right. It was the straw that broke the camel's back. And it wasn't just all of a sudden that this just happened out of nowhere.
Right.
And that's what people need to understand. This is not like this just happened out of nowhere.
No.
You're seeing the consequences. You're seeing the result. You're seeing the fallout of all of this stuff that has been building up. And it's like, it's not any different than if you hear somebody or watch somebody screaming and you see them yelling and hollering, and you're like, if you're looking at a distance and you're not understanding why, you just say, well, that person looks crazy. That person is just, what's wrong? But if you understand where that's coming from, and the suppression that has been building up, and it just bubbles over, and then it just broke. And that's what I think we're in a time here that people are really, really tuning in and really listening. And I really think that the young people today are the ones that are going to be able to say, you know what, we're going to make these changes and we're going to make them permanent.
Exactly.
So.
But I want them to always be grateful and thankful. I am every day. I thank Crazy Horse. I thank Cuauhtemoc. I thank Simon Bolivar. I thank Martin Luther King. I thank Malcolm X. I thank Rodolfo Coque Gonzalez, because they stood up so that we could be here today.
They did.
And it's our responsibility to continue that work.
It is absolutely. It's not ending till justice is served for all of us. Until
That's
all
right.
of us have that equal justice. Nobody has more than one. It's equal.
Right.
That's what we want. That's what we want. And we want to elevate. We want to help each other out to be the best that we can be. That's what we want as a country and as a nation. I would like to introduce our other two guests that we have on, if I may, and then we'll get into this discussion. I love it, Nita. We're going to get into this. Paul Lane. Paul became the president of his alumni association, where he served as course instructor facilitator for the Visions Multicultural and Transformational Leadership Program at the Colorado Community College. Paul, please introduce yourself to our audience today and just share a little bit about your background and of course, your show that you have here on KUHS Denver.
Well, thank you so much. I am just, like everyone else, I'm humbled and just so grateful to be a part of this. I'm a fifth generation Colorado native. My family was from what is now Walsenburg, and as we know, that is no longer Walsenburg. So, as a child, my mom gave me that internalization of inferior status by not teaching me Spanish, because she was afraid that I would be punished for it, like she was. I was a veteran diversity instructor for 10 years at Public Service Company, at World's Public Service Company. I've been a motivational speaker since 1982. I've mentored about 6,000 young men and women over the years. I'm the author of the book, The Caregiver's Handbook, a self-help love story, the host of the Weekend Boost on KUHS. I think that it's a great time. I see the silver lining in this cloud. I see the opportunity for us to grasp. I see the opportunity for us to change the name of Sheridan and Evans. I see the opportunity for us to remove those icons that have given us that inferior status and help to convince us that Latino Chicano people are less than. We're not. We're intelligent, we're capable, we're contributors, and I just believe that I want to be a part of that contribution. I think that the young Americans, not all races, are looking for a leader. They're looking for someone to stand up, and I think that they need to have someone there that looks like them and someone who understands them and who is from that neighborhood. And it's very difficult when you have someone who's school trained and has no idea of the cultural identities of the people they're talking to. And I just really believe that because we have come from that background, that we have something to offer, that we would be it would be a sin for us not to share our knowledge, wisdom, and experience. I'm so thankful to be a part of this, and I just hope that, and I see big things to come.
Well, I think there is. I think there's huge things to come from these conversations. Being allowed, letting people speak, letting them be heard, letting them be seen. And we all represent our ancestors, and we can represent the best of them or the worst of them, and that's really ultimately a choice. Every choice has a consequence. Every action has a reaction, and how we respond to this moment is going to determine what our children's future is going to be like, and all of us. And so, being able to have people like you, Paul, speaking out for their community, and being able to give people someone they can look up to and recognize, wow, if Paul can do that, I can do that as well. And I think it's important for us to all be able to discuss these issues about why we are where we are today and what we can do to move forward and move ahead. All right, Paul. I would like to bring in as well on our show Terry Lopez. She is a Denver solo attorney, a DU alum and West High School alum, and a community activist volunteer. Welcome to the show, Terry.
Hello, thank you. I'm happy to be here and be with everyone on the panel. I feel very honored to join all of you. Just to give you a little bit of my background, I'm an attorney in private practice. I represent a lot of families. I do a lot of work with those who are limited English proficient, LEP, as they say, but mainly are monolingual Spanish speakers and other languages are the individuals who I do a lot of work for and represent. I actually really appreciated Paul's words about, his mom trying to teach him better and not speaking Spanish so he could learn English and be more educated, move on. And I have to tell you, I came from a similar place where my parents focused on education, and I have been very fortunate to advance my education all the way through a Juris Doctorate, but I also lost the ability to speak Spanish. In our homes, we were encouraged to speak English. And I have worked extremely hard to learn Spanish and to bring it back and to learn to communicate with my relatives and my clients now who are Spanish speaking. And it's unfortunate that we had that language ability starting out within our own raza, within our own community, and because of the need to focus and participate and feel like we belong in the educational institution, we had to let go of it. And now, if you want to know Spanish, if you're a young person, you've got to pay thousands of dollars to go to an institution where they will teach you Spanish. And that's very, very important because it was part of us, it was part of our culture, our lifestyle, our familias, and now people have to work very, very hard to get that back. And I know those from the Lakota Nation and the Oglala, I know that everybody is struggling with that, trying to maintain the importance of our language as it applies to our culture. It's a huge part of it. So I appreciate what you said, Paul.
Thank you.
I work with an organization. I'm on the board of directors for Adelante Mujer. We work with Latina students, high school and college students, trying to help them advance their college and their careers in higher education. So, and I do other types of community activity.
That's amazing, and so important. It's such important work that you do, Terry. And it's and everybody here who's joined us on the forum. I want us to get into some of the causes, the root problems that you see, that you've had to work through, live through, experience from your culture and your histories. One of the things that I do I work with people with trauma and helping them to understand the intergenerational and historical and ancestral trauma, and to help them to heal and to get back into a transgenerational coherence. But we have to be able to identify what is going on underneath and to speak the truth about it. So I was wondering if maybe starting with Levi here, if you could share a little bit about the history of the Native American, and also Marty, if you could join in as well, the history of the tribes and their experience, how that has impacted them, and why that is so important for our audience to know about it. Why is this important?
I think that you always have to start with Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
When he showed up in was the Bahamas or one of the islands down there,
Mm-hmm.
and the tone was set. I've heard people say that America was conceived in sin or evil, and some of the atrocities that occurred down there, and they took people back to Europe, Native people, indigenous people as slaves, and
Mm-hmm.
and what historically what we found, and it's even true now, it really speaks to greed, right down to greed. They want to control us, they want to have the power because they want to be able to take our land. I did a story just today that the three affiliated tribes up in North Dakota they have a lawsuit that was filed yesterday in federal court against the Department of the Interior. For 82 years, federal opinions, even an act of Congress happened, and that confirmed that the land underneath the Missouri River that runs through the reservation is in fact belongs to the tribes. While there's mineral rights in oil, and here comes that word greed. The greed that they have. And through it, 2 days before Trump took office, the deputy or the acting solicitor general at the Department of the Interior confirmed that it was the tribe's land. The Trump administration has reversed that. The Interior Department has reversed that. And it's greed, and what we see is the rejoicing that takes place at those levels of the idea that America's great, which I think is a false statement, but that America's great, but it's only because of this tax cut that he did for the 1% that have benefited tremendously. And I could go on for hours talking about this, but I'm going to turn it over. But I'm going to say greed is really this root cause of this, and it's about power, that they want to control us all the time. I wrote an editorial just this week. There again, North Dakota. There's a former lieutenant governor who's, I think he's getting age now, but he wrote as if I had to literally look at that article to make sure it wasn't written in the 1950s.
Oh.
Because it was written in such a paternalistic fashion. He said that Native people haven't gotten with it. We don't look to our futures. And you know what? The tribal leaders I know,
Wow.
and all across America, they speak in terms of preserving Mother Earth, preparing for 7 generations. And so, tell me we don't think about the future. When our tribal leaders, I wish our congressmen and our senators would think, members of Congress would think in terms of 7 generations as Native people do.
Mm-hmm.
That was the floor.
That is so, Levi, that's so true. I think it was a Shoshone elder who said, they plan for, when you heal when you heal yourself, you heal the 7 generations behind you, and you heal the 7 generations ahead of you. So they had a much broader understanding of the interconnectedness and balance of life. All native tribes, I believe, have that because they were connected to nature. They were connected to the land. They understood how the balance and how to maintain that balance. And then when Western Europeans came over here, they certainly upset that balance with their guns, with their germs, with their greed, and the richness of the land. And they took it. We did that, and there has been, in my opinion, nobody that we have done more damage to than the Native peoples. the Black America is next, but we have not done, it's just, we have to rectify it. We can't change what our ancestors did, but we can do something today and make right what's supposed to be right, and to get people together and to get people to talk about these things. Now, Marty, from your perspective on this, can you share a little bit about, from your tribe's perspective, the historical trauma, the how it's impacted your peoples, and to speak about the pipeline that so many Americans, as well as native tribes, that came together to block that pipeline. I mean, it was a historic thing. There's if I'm not mistaken, there's the legend of the Black Serpent, or I'm saying that wrong, but there was one of the tribes who saw that there was a black serpent and that it had to stop. Anyway, could you share with us just a little bit about how your tribe has experienced these incursions?
Well, my tribe is the Oglala, are part of the Dakota Nation, which is made up of 7 tribes. We existed in a 5-state region up here, and part of the claim is the Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868, something that was held up in court in the 1980s as being one of the grossest crimes committed in these treaties.
And could you show me the 1868? What was it again? Could you move a little bit closer? Yeah.
The Fort Laramie Treaty of 1868.
Thank you.
Which basically encompasses 5 states up here, up north, but the centralized in the area that we consider sacred is the Black Hills. We continue to fight for that today. You made light of the pipeline and prophecies. A lot of tribes have these same prophecies, except these prophecies are building up to the end of the world. And so as these prophecies come true, we're marching toward a time when we want to be here. Basically, we talk about a black serpent coming, that poisons the land. And
well, the black serpent is the oil, right? Isn't that
it's
the pipeline?
Well.
Yeah.
And we also these other prophecies that are come true, like water will flow uphill, which is basically pipeline.
Wow.
We also believe that water will become something that will be coveted in the future. All these treaties, they didn't address water and water rights. So basically, we still have those. It's something that some people are looking into right now. But basically, it will be something that will come to the forefront. I mean, when we were kids, we thought we'd buy a bottle of water for $1. But now it's commonplace. When our troops went into Iraq, they used to give kids bottles of water, and the kids would say, what is this? It's so clean. They didn't know what it was. And here we are, we have toilets and we flush drinking water and commit these sins, basically, that we'll have to atone to someday. Overall, we've only had contact with European Americans maybe 150, 175 years. So a lot of our culture and language is still intact. We still practice these religions. To be Lakota is to be religious. So consequently, all our decision making is based on prayer and thought and process and asking the spirits for direction. So, with this influx of European Americans that came into our countries, it was like, what I said, it's based a culture that's based on greed. And this greed drives their innovations and their inventions to covet and take more lands from other peoples. So it's a foreign concept to us. So I think it's something that you know, our children are learning about, and our children will take to the forefront someday. And it's our hope as an elderly people within our tribe to teach our children the importance of the treaties and the importance of keeping our lands intact.
Well, isn't it something about in native cultures, giving your word was something very important. I mean, that was more important than a contract. I mean, you gave your word about something, you meant it. Is that still the case today, where if you promise to do something, you do it?
I feel with a lot of traditional people, it is something that's at the forefront for what we're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we decide to do something, we do it as a people. You know, I myself can only speak for myself. You can't speak for all Native peoples. Nobody elected me. Nobody put me in charge of it. But as an individual, I have one opinion, but also as a Native person, as a member of my nation,
Mm-hmm.
you know, we look to our leadership, we look to our spiritual leaders for guidance.
Mm-hmm. And it's I find that one of the things that I love most is the devotion and the connection to spirit that the native peoples have, and it's so strong. And there's a moral code. The chiefs of the tribe were also the medicine men, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Some more, but to be a leader, to be a chief, you also had to be the horseman. You know, you didn't covet things like horses or houses or whatnot. You gave everything away. So to be a leader, you also had to be the horseman.
Wow.
You know, can I just interject?
Yeah.
I think through definition of, the new term they have called servant leadership,
Mm-hmm.
well, actually, I think it derived from Indigenous First Nations people. You were in service to your community.
And that has been, Nita, that's been something that's been like really involved in the culture, is learning to how to be selfless, to serve the country or to serve your community, this selfless service. And that comes from the native communities, the indigenous communities.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Because that's become part of our lexicon now. Could you share this, since Nita, you're up, just a little bit for your history and some of the things that, as you were growing up and seeing all the injustices that were happening, how did that impact you as a girl growing up in those and seeing that happen around you, listening, and what it invoked in you? What did it move inside of you that said, you know what, this has got to change?
Well, I had a different upbringing than even most of my peers.
Mm-hmm.
I had an upbringing in a household with a father that was very strict, but also very enlightened and progressive in his thinking. Although I do remind people he had 4 daughters first, so he came screaming and kicking into feminism.
Mm-hmm.
So we couldn't talk about human rights and freedom and not get challenged by his 4 older daughters who said, "Does that mean us?" Like, it means we could do that, right? So he had a great sense of humor and used humor to help us get through difficult times. But we grew up in East Denver, like I said. It was a poor neighborhood, working class, very diverse neighborhood. It was mostly Chicano and African American, but there's also German and Polish, Japanese. So we were exposed, and we had one thing in common. We were rich. We didn't have a lot of material wealth, but we had culture, tradition that we shared. Of course, I was pretty hard-headed, and I work on my temper every day. I still do. I still work on my anger and my temper.
Mm-hmm.
When I see injustice, when I see inequality. I was raised in a family where we were told we needed to stand up and speak out. I don't care. My dad would say, I'd say, well, gee, I'm the only one that's going to do that. He said, I don't care. I don't care if you're the only one that does it. You need to do it if it's wrong. So that's the philosophy I grew up with. And so I also experienced, I didn't know till when, Paul might know this, I don't know, Terry, maybe I didn't know that the KKK was so prevalent till we did marches against what started the Crusade for Justice was a police shooting of two Chicanos in Mestizo Curtis Park. And we changed the names of the parks in this city. So Mestizo Curtis, Clama, Lincoln, La Raza. Yes, Amanda Sandoval. Thank you, Councilwoman. She's moving to change the name of Columbus. But we renamed them, and that's what started the Crusade for Justice. And as a result of those shootings, we have the first El 16 de Septiembre on the state capitol, and that's when Martin said in his speech, we will not be treated inhumanely, we will not be treated as second-class citizens. This is our homeland, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to launch a crusade for justice. And that became the name of the organization, and the Chicano movement was born in Denver, Colorado in 1969 at the Crusade for Justice.
That's amazing. That is so, a lot of people, it's so cool.
I grew up meeting and being in rooms with Russell Means and Dennis Baines and the American Indian movement. I grew up with Angela Davis at the table. I grew up knowing about Steve Biko and the apartheid movement in South Africa. No one else knew it. I didn't know why they didn't know it, but I knew it. I grew up meeting, supporting the Puerto Ricans that shot up Congress. I took the side of those who shot at Congress, not the ones that were in Congress. And so, as a result, oftentimes I'm ostracized. But my father taught us to have strength and courage in our beliefs, in our principles. He said, you cannot, you speak about giving your word. No, he said, you cannot be a good human being if you do not stand up and have principle. You have to have integrity and principle. That was important to him in every sense of the word. And then the secondary thing was education. We did not dare get anything less than A's in our classes. Yeah. My dad, he believed education leveled the playing field for us. He says, I can't give you wealth. I can't leave you property. I can't, the school, but I can make sure you have the best education and you use it for your people. So I grew up in that environment, and an environment where, I stood up, and my sister who was in third grade, she was in kindergarten, the youngest. She did a little mini walkout because she wouldn't stand up and do the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And she said, I can't. And she talked two of her African-American girlfriends into doing the same thing. Wow. So they called my dad and dad and said, she needs to go home. He went, I don't know what he told them, but guess what? She didn't go home. And she got to sit, she never stood for the Pledge of Allegiance. She said, until we're all free, and the land goes back to our indigenous relatives, we're not free.
Well, that's so true, and I think you made such an important part.
Did those things. I didn't know I was living another way of life, kind of.
Well, and I think you said you didn't have much, but you had education and knowledge, and that could be the difference maker, and that could be the thing that really makes a difference in a person's life, that they don't have to be held back. And saying the Pledge of Allegiance and all that to a flag and all those things, you know what, if you haven't been given equal justice, you have to be able to stand up for yourselves and be able to be,
Well, his saying, he made us know we're patriotic when we march in the streets. Right. We're patriotic when we stand up for justice. We're patriotic when we stand up for equality. He made us, we read a lot. I still read a lot. Great literature and writers from various communities. But Langston Hughes' poem on Let America Be, that's an amazing poem that says, she is not America that. You haven't been America to me. And until you are, you cannot be. So, that's what I grew up with.
That's amazing. And I think a lot of times people don't understand. And I was in the military. I'm proud of, my service. I was a veteran. I come from a family of veterans. But I stood up for the idea of that America is for everyone. It is for Latinos, it is for Native Americans, it is for Italians, it is for Asians, it is for Europe. That's what it is, and that's what and all of the people who I served with, they all carried those high ideals, and we wanted to have that for everyone, that sense of freedom and justice for everyone, but not everybody got that.
Real quickly. So we know race and racial inequality have contributed to the shaping of the history of this country. We know that since its beginning.
Since its inception,
From the start, American society was founded on brutal forms of domination, inequality, and oppression, which involved the absolute denial of freedom for indigenous First Nations people, took their land, and then put them on reservations and children. I mean, they do I can't believe we still do to children what we do, but they put children in boarding schools, and they put our children now in cages. So African Americans, Asian Americans, this is one of the great paradoxes of American history. How could the ideals of equality and freedom coexist with genocide, oppression, and slavery? We live with the ramifications of that. And we need to lead the discussion. We do. We need to lead the discussion of the historical variations in the forms of racial inequality and oppression in the United States. We need to be leading this discussion.
Absolutely, absolutely. And just whoever with our guests, if you could turn off the background noise, if you have anything, it echoes for everything, for everybody, so thank you. But, you know, it's people like me and others who are veterans, we fought for everybody, and when it's not, when the truth of the matter is, there has been systematic oppression and injustice and stuff that has been systemic for our history and for too long. This needs to be rectified, it needs to be done, because our identity in America, and the reason why we stood by that is because that's the reason why we stood by it. Okay, Paul, could you add to the conversation, please, sir?
You know, Brene Brown said the system is not broken; it's working exactly as it was designed to work. We have been divided by design. You know, one of the things Nita was saying hit me so hard, and that is, we have so many splitterings of the Latino, Chicano, Hispanic, Mexican culture that it's very hard to bring unity within. You know, I heard a thing on NPR today, and they were talking about how hard it is to get Latino, Chicano people to support all Black Lives Matter. And the hardest thing is when we have so much difficulty uniting the groups of people that are affected by this, it slows the process down, and so the results are very hard to find. I believe that we need to find some common ground where we can move forward with a positive agenda. I just believe that there's opportunities, and I wish I had an answer. You know, I keep saying we need another Martin Luther King. We need a Corky Gonzalez. We need, and sometimes I slap myself in the face and I say, what's wrong with me? Why am I not that guy?
Right.
We are those guys.
We are those people. We are those people. Yeah. I mean, I'm an Italian American, and I represent the white culture. You know, but I have an immense compassion and love for all of you and I stand with when I see injustice, when I see things that have been wrong, or somebody has been told me something that I thought was true that turned out to be false, or something that was told to me that was false and it turns out to be true, it enrages me. That sense of injustice. I've never, ever, ever liked to see somebody harmed or hurt.
And Charlie.
And so we need to go ahead. Go ahead.
One thing, Paul, this is what I always warn against. I don't care what NPR says. That doesn't mean they really know what our people think. I am telling you, our Chicano activists and progressives, our grassroots people, they're with Black Lives Matters. Our people also were there for Standing Rock. We went up and supported Standing Rock, Wounded Knee, because we understood that's the deal. It's like you said, Charlie, trying to help people who have been traumatized generationally come to terms with decolonizing their mind and their spirit. And when that happens, then we see our role as being part of the solution, not the problem. And the solution is people power. the solution is all of us as justice warriors. That's the solution.
I love that. Justice warrior.
When you look at the history books, it's very difficult to find history that talks about my family. It's very difficult to find history that tells the real truth about the Hispanic, Chicano, Latino people that were oppressed in Colorado and continue to be so. And so it's really hard to find that identity when you're lost in the quagmire.
Mm-hmm. Is it, and I want to get back, but I know we have another guest, and we certainly want to bring her wisdom and knowledge and understanding. Dr. Lynn McDonald, she has joined us. She is our Tribe Center for Well-Being. And Dr. Lynn, could you introduce yourself to everyone here, and just a little bit about your background, and and just something from what you've already heard so far. Dr. Lynn? Are you there, Dr.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now. Hi.
Okay, cool. I thought I was wearing my microphone and was working. I guess not.
So you're talking, and you're like, no, there's no sound.
Yes, I apologize for the background noise from my son and everything. So a little bit about me. I am a neurologically based chiropractor. My husband and I run practice. I'm really grateful to be part of this. My background is I like to identify myself as Chinese American, meaning I'm first generation, and my parents are from Vietnam, and they were born in Vietnam. However, we're also Chinese, and so very much, I love my name, Lynn Pei Tran, being like an identity of this transition of my family, my ancestors settling in Vietnam, my middle name Chinese, and my first name is Americanized, where it's Lynn, but it's very similar to how you pronounce it as in my Mandarin name. So as far as being able to respond to, I think it was Paul who was saying, like, I wish I could stand up, I wish I could, or there's someone who can take lead, but a really big part of it that I want to say right now is a lot of my own identity, a lot of me questioning who I am and what are some of my limitations and my beliefs during this time where Black Lives Matter, and is about self-work. It's about identifying what are some of my own limiting personal beliefs that I grew up with, that my parents raised me up. And it's not a blame, it's not anger, it's really just understanding that their circumstances and how they understood the world and how that is so culturally and everyday ingrained in me, and being able to identify those patterns in terms of response. So for instance, if I could be completely honest, when Black Lives Matter and there's news pops up, I was actually surprised. My first instance was that second of, oh wow, there's actually Asians that are supporting, that there's pictures of these groups of women that are in their 50s or in their 60s who are standing up and protesting for to be able to support the Black community. And my first instance was just like, wow, that's weird. Because the reality is, my parents, I'm in my 30s, my parents, growing up, their thought process was, it's unsafe if you go into a Black neighborhood, or you can't trust, you have to be mindful, even our lexicon, and it's not, or in our language, I speak Cantonese at home with my parents, and it's interesting how our everyday language is in Cantonese, even to describe Caucasian, but they would say hak white or bak white, and what that means when you literally translate hak white means black ghost, or bak white is like to describe a white person as white ghost. And my husband and I are both, my husband is Caucasian, and we're in an interracial marriage, and I described that one day, and he was just like, wow, that's actually offensive. Like, I don't think about it. And it's just like, why do you describe other people as ghosts? Yeah. And you have to be but then it's part of our language. You don't think about it until you stop to think about it. And then so, there's, right now, it's part of it part of this journey right now when we are exploring how we can, I know we're stepping out, and it's great that we have younger generation protesting in such a way to say, this is not right, we have to start to change this is not okay, and start to to identify some of the history behind it, and how does this still translate to affect us today. I think, however, it really also most importantly stems from self-work, and it's also stemming from, I have a 3-year-old, so it stems from how as I'm doing the self-work and redefining or questioning who I am and how I am as Asian, married to a husband who is outside my culture, and at the same time how I'm choosing to teach my son language at home, and what type of education or what type of people that I want him to surround himself with so that he can be more exposed to diversity, and what does that mean, and defining what discrimination is, defining what prejudice is. All of that comes from me modeling it. And if I'm not living it, if my husband and I are not having open conversations, our younger generation won't be able to be as conscious about that. And I think it's very much leadership can take part in so many different ways. It can be civil, it could be civic, meaning, we can take part in the neighborhood, in the community, statewide, citywide. However, it can begin with our homes, within our homes, begin with our colleagues, and begin with our peers, that, and having those interpersonal conversations and holding space to make sure that it's safe, not necessarily like, that is not right that you think that way, I completely disagree with you. It's more about, wow, I never thought of it that way, and I just want to learn more. And so, being able to speak from that aspect, I feel strongly about it, and, it's been very personal ever since I had my son. It's that my sense of identity. I was born here, I feel comfortable, but I realized maybe I'm not so comfortable in who I am. And so yeah, that's, leadership can take part in your own family.
Absolutely. I think the leadership in the family is where it begins. And being able to have those conversations and and I think we have to take shame out of it, in the sense that, it's not, be able to have conversations that are authentic and real and genuine. You've got to be able to not feel shame about it, and being able to be open to understanding, well, when you say that term that you said, black ghost or white ghost, well, if you don't know the context of that, or you don't understand, and if you're so afraid to be able to say, well, what is that? Well, that's offensive. Oh my gosh, why are we saying those things? If you don't start to decolonize your own mind, in the sense that we've all had that, and so now we've got to try to figure it out without feeling, bad about it. We've got to be able to deconstruct it. We've got to be able to liberate ourselves, and liberate our spirits and our souls from some of the things that we were just inadvertently born into, based upon, our families and where our genetic ancestors come from. We can all figure this out. We just need to be open to having those conversations. I want to bring in, there's a history here in Colorado, and I'm sure, Terry, let's start with you. So I would love, many people don't know that there was a history of the Ku Klux Klan here. There was discrimination here. There was for the Latino and Chicano community. I don't know if you could start us off and share about that history, because I think, in my opinion, history is one of the most important things that a human being can study. Because by studying history and how they made their decisions, why it was a living history. Those people lived during those times. And if we forget our history, we're going to repeat it. If we forget our history, then people get hurt and get oppressed, and things don't change. Could you share and start us off, Terry, with this history in Colorado and Denver that many people probably don't know?
Well, I will start out by responding to something Nita said. She was talking about her father and the Crusade for Justice, and I want to throw out there that the Crusade for Justice needs to be a fluid activity that continues on. It was part of our history here in Colorado, in Denver. Jorge Gonzalez did so much to bring awareness to our community, but we are still today. I met with folks today who are on the bad end of housing discrimination. They speak Spanish, they're from Puerto Rico, and they live in Brush, Colorado, and it's the housing authority who is discriminating against them. So all of the things that were fought for in the 60s and in the 70s through the marches, it continues. It's just that it hasn't been brought to the forefront as it is now. And I think for me, one of the very important things is the use of our words. We need to have our voice. Our young people need to know they have a voice, and they have to use the importance of using their words to bring awareness within their own community, within their own family, and to these boards, to the churches, to the institutions that they are part of right now. When I went to DU, I was one of about 5 Chicano students at the University of Denver. Those numbers haven't changed greatly. I'm a lawyer of 32 years now, and those numbers have changed somewhat, but we're still looking at 1%, 2%, 3% at the college level. That is not okay. And if you think about the time span of the 50s to the 2020, and the only inroads we have made are by small percentage points, it's disgusting and it's offensive, and we need to do more to bring that pipeline through. You know, I think about my ancestors often, and I, especially as a woman, as a Chicana, I try to remember, you know, think about my ancestors and what did my grandmother and my aunts and my great-grandmothers go through, and how did they survive? What tools did they use to manage to get through what they were confronting at the time, and how did they triumph? How did they manage to cope, to deal? How did they manage to heal themselves, to keep their families together, and to keep, you know, moving forward? And so I think about that all the time, trying to help myself and I work in a profession where, you know, women were not a big part of my profession. When I started back in the 1980s, I started practicing law, and there still were not Hispanic women judges on the bench. There were very few women of any color on the bench. It was mostly a male-dominated profession for a very long time. And so I will tell you, as a Chicana, as a lawyer, the biggest discrimination I think I have felt has been being a woman. As a woman, I've endured a lot of discrimination and a lot of obstacles. I have endured that through my culture as well, but I think as a woman stepping into a profession, a male-dominated profession, that was a really very tough thing to do. And so I think our young people are now seeing, they're rising up, they're speaking out, they're marching, but we kind of let the ball drop. We had this very strong civil rights movement early on, and a few of the activists continued to be fluid and continued to be outspoken with, as you know, issues were coming forward through the past 30, 40 years. But many people just stopped. They stopped the activism, they stopped the marches, they stopped being involved. And I think it's really important for people to be on forums like this, to use their voices, to get their words out, and to be involved in the boards, to be involved at the local level, to be involved in your, you know, your council, whatever your school district. You know, right now there are major decisions going to be made about children going back to school. You know, what do we have under a COVID pandemic what assurances do they have that our children are not going to be the guinea pigs and the ones who bring home the COVID to our families and kill us off? And that, to me, that's a really big deal.
Right.
You know, in the suburban neighborhoods with the newer schools, they have the air conditioning, they have better conditions than the people who live in the poor neighborhoods, the schools in the poor neighborhoods. So these children from poor neighborhoods who are going to be predominantly kids of color are going to be forced to go back to school in a situation where they could be seriously at risk. So in my mind, I see all around me right now as a lawyer plenty of issues and avenues that people need to address. It's happening in the courts. It's happening now that they've gone to virtual court systems. Interpreters, for those who don't speak English, are getting pushed to the side or not being involved the same way as if you were standing in court in front of a judge.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things, and this pandemic is affecting every aspect of our life. And I'm happy that people are speaking out and marching and giving voice to the Black Lives Matter. I'm concerned, very, very concerned, that people need to take it the step further, and it has to go to the inside. I know for the Crusade for Justice back in the day, there were lots of marches and protests. I chose to go through the education system and try to figure out, how do I learn the rules to fight from within? I want to know the rules so I can be on an even playing game, so I could go to the court, so I could try to bring about change in that manner.
And I think that's such an important thing for people to get, is to be able to recognize that you have more power than you realize. The choices that you make, allowing your voice to be heard, you don't have to allow yourself to be pushed around by the society. There's so much of power. You have so much that you can do. You are in command of your soul. You are the one in charge of your heart and your mind, and no one can ever take that away from you. Nobody can take that. No matter what's going on the outside of you, you can make a difference and you can change. And I want to get other people involved here, Terry, really quick.
I just wanted to interrupt with Terry. You're exactly right, Terry, but that's what the movement was about, to give those choices and open up those paths for people to make a choice to do that. And the only requirement was bring it back home.
That's right.
Help your people. That's it. That's it. You need to help your people. So if we have people that were in the crusade and some of their young people that came through there, and they did very well in business and construction, and they helped fund the school. And I'm grateful, because we wouldn't have had a school if they wouldn't have given back. We didn't say don't do it, but we're saying remember where you come from and that you give back to your community where it's needed.
I agree, absolutely.
Right.
And I think that's one of the things that I would like to ask the forum. What are some of the things, the issues that are most concerning for your community, and that during this time, as we are seeing this very chaotic, very disruptive, very volatile time, but it's also pregnant with possibilities. It's pregnant with this opportunity for real change to happen. I mean, it's something different. There's something different about this time. But we need to grasp it. We need to be able to see the truth in things and be able to say, all right, this is the truth. This is where we need to go. But we have to have the clarity so that we can see it and then make the better decisions based upon what is the truth. And I would love for each of you to share, and Levi, if you could start us off, what is going on in the communities that you see that's happening now, and what possibilities do you see about this time?
Well, I think, and I'm going to address something Paul said, I think earlier, about having a common agenda. We have 4 months. The next 4 months are going to be so important for us to get our acts together, to mobilize our people to go out and vote. If we have one agenda in the next 4 months, it should be vote. When you think in terms of how the current occupant of the White House went to Puerto Rico, threw those paper towels around, what an insult. Every Puerto Rican in Florida, every Puerto Rican in the United States needs to be voting him out of office. Every American Indian who I know, I'm going to push hard. And I have to be careful because I'm media, I'm supposed to be balanced. But I will say this, that we live in unprecedented times in terms of the lies, the pure lies that come out of that White House every single day. That even this commercial, the commercialist plays, I saw it on television here in Grand Rapids a week or so ago, where he says, Biden says, defund the police. Biden never said that. And we need to start, as people of color, we need to come together and really call them out on these lies. Because it's really, there again, it's a power play. They want to retain power so that they can do whatever they want with the tax structure, the wealth in this country. And that's, I could talk all night long on this, but we need to vote. We need to mobilize our people to make sure at every single level, at local level, state level, federal level, that we get the right people in office who will work on our behalf to help push our agendas. As in my case, as Native Americans, we have a lot of issues, but every single day we are under attack, and we need to keep pressing.
I would just like to say real quick, thank you very much for that, Levi, exactly. But you know what? I hear people saying we want to return to normal. I don't. The normal we had before, we had 140 million people living in poverty.
Right.
Agreed.
We had children on the border in cages.
Yeah.
We have people that don't have quality water. We have, you're right, Terry, within our state, a housing crisis. And it's going to get worse once, the whole executive order of stopping foreclosures and rental evictions, not that they're not happening, but, we still have to deal with that. So I think we have to recognize that at the same time, this is an opportunity in this moment. No matter what it takes, I want it to at least it be written down in history that we continued that fight and that struggle for justice, for transformation, for a society that is filled with hope, with strength, with success for everyone. So I'm just saying, Levi, this is our time, and we cannot sit back. And Terry, you're right, we cannot go silent on it either. We have to come together. So I would add this other thing. The beauty of the protest showed that there were also Caucasians, white people that marched, young people, who stood up. And good for them, there was an alliance created. That can we build on that alliance? Can we build on it in a way that we create a unity that can move us from words to action, from reformation to transformation, from inhumanity to reclaiming our humanity?
Oh, yes.
That's my
beautiful. That's beautiful. It is. It's about connecting to our universal humanity. It's looking beyond the color, the race, the gender, the creed, and seeing the heart and the soul of the person. The character of the human being that's before you. And so often we have been led to believe by false understandings and prejudices that somebody's different, or I'm better, or this is that. And that's not true. And so being able to stand up for these things is important, and to recognize, all right, these are problems that are happening. These were tribal lands. They don't belong to us. This is sacred to the Native Americans. Fixing the water issue. You've got polluted water and people are drinking. You've got to take care of those things. Not giving them up the Chicano and the Latino communities opportunities to improve them. So we've got to acknowledge that. So what are the things? What do we see here that is possible? Is it possible for us to be able to make these changes that that can lead to a future America that can really be beneficial to all? Is it possible? Go ahead, Reverend. I want it to be interactive. Go ahead, Terry.
I think it's very possible, but I think that we have to be almost like watchdogs on how things move forward. And I will say that because right now we're in a technology mode And those who have the technology, who have the power and the platform and the venue to present their agendas and to raise their issues, and those who do not have that will be lacking in access. And I think we can have a huge divide. And within many cultures, there are a lot of people in the rural areas. There are a lot of people who speak other languages, who are just as American as the person next door, but who are not going to have the same type of access. And I'm saying that because my experience is through the courts, and what I'm seeing through the courts right now, and what people are coming to my office and telling me how they are injured and how they have nowhere to turn, and resources are cut everywhere. Offices are, Social Security is shut down in terms of if you need something, you have to call. Or they tell you, go online, go to www, log in and set up an account.
Right.
Well, if you don't have a computer and you're disabled or you're a senior citizen and you don't speak English to even be able to read that www dot whatever, then how are you going to access those benefits that you may desperately need? How are you going to get the health care? How are you going to complain about housing grievances if you have to do it all through technology, but you're barred from using technology because of your circumstances? So I think that those of us who are in the positions we're in, we need to speak out for those who don't have that technology, who don't have that access, and try to make sure that our communities have access in some way to it, because I'm seeing a lot of it where people are being hurt by that right now.
One of the things for me that's very important is the political process that we have right now is flawed so badly. We have got to eliminate the Electoral College. I personally feel like these term limits is something that we have got to address. We have the Congress, Senate, they need to be limited on their terms. Personally, I feel like there should be no lifetime appointment for a judge, because I think that there's a lot of influence and it's a lifetime influence. The Republican Party has put 200 judges on the bench. And you know what? Every one of them is a conservative process speaker who has an agenda that is not an agenda that fits my needs or supports or serves my needs or my people who look like me. I think that we have to lobby hard. I think we have to stop this gerrymandering, this voter suppression, because if we are allowed to come to the polls and speak as we really should in the numbers that we are representing, I think that there will be no Republican Party. I think that the voices of the people are going to be heard, and that's where for myself, I want to push and lobby for.
Well, it's important to be able to give people the right to vote. I mean, that's such a big deal, and so many people of color have had their vote suppressed and pushed down and not allowed to that. So these are things that we do need to address and do need to get people out there and say, your vote counts. And regardless of what political party you belong to, you got to stop the lies. And it seems like the lies that are everywhere, and particularly this administration has seemed to be a production of lies, and it distorts our ability to trust evidence, to trust facts, to trust science, to trust the things that we need in order to make good decisions. And so we need to hold our public officials, Republican, liberal, Democrat, independent, I don't care who, we need to hold you accountable to speaking the truth. And you speak the truth to all of us. And you give your word and you keep your word. And when you make agreements with people, you honor them. I mean, these are just basic fundamental principles that we started off with when we came from our ancestral tribes. That's how we got along, and we need to kind of go back to some of those foundational roots and values that we had and came with that are connect us all to one another. And so, yes, we need to vote, and we need to hold ourselves, our political leaders held accountable to what they do. We can't hold other people accountable to what we want to hold them accountable to if we can't hold ourselves accountable to the same thing. So when we give our word and we speak the truth, we expect them to do the same. And if you're just saying lies all the time, then we need to get you out of there. And that's, we really as a culture and a society need to make that. I think that is the biggest thing right now that's going on. Go ahead, if anybody wants to add to that.
I just wanted to say, while I am very much support that we get our people out to vote, that's part of their voice, I also believe their voice is in helping to educate and inform them in a way that to come together, to unify in a way that they can make changes, that they can speak up against these inequalities. Terry, you do that work when you're doing your legal work. Everyone does it in their space. The question is, can we unify and create? I think Levi said it best. I don't like reacting to other people's agenda. I think it's time we create our agenda. Mm-hmm. What is our agenda? Right. And every elected person, every politician, every system has to address it. And that's one of the things we started in the Chicano movement, but Terry, we didn't follow through all the time. But when you pack a council meeting with 500 people around housing, guess what? They're going to listen. But we have to know, what are we packing it for? Mm-hmm. What's our agenda? What is it we need? And so I like being proactive. I like developing the agenda and say, okay, this is what we're going to move in the next year. And guess what? If you can support us, we can support you. If you can, as a business, support us, then we're out of you. You will go to your restaurant or to, it's like, Goya that just did that, a CEO who gave all kinds of kudos to Trump. I couldn't believe it. Guess what? That product went out my house.
It was Goya.
Not one thing, not one of it. None of us in our family right now.
And that's, we have we have been blessed right now to be joined by Henry Archuleta, who is the station manager here, the producer of this forum, this social issues forum that we have today. And so, Henry, please.
I don't know if we lost Dr. Lynn.
No, she's still on.
She's still on there.
Yeah,
she's underneath there.
She's
and I'd like to thank everybody for coming in and joining us. Well, we were expecting Arturo Rodriguez and Marcos Martinez, but they couldn't make it. They had a little issue that came in. And also the publisher of La Voz newspaper, Pauline. And so I'd like to thank those individuals who couldn't join us. They tried, but we knew that we would have some sort of issue with having this many beautiful guests. And going back to Nita, I knew your father real well. I knew your brother real well. You guys didn't know I was always talking to your father. Yeah, you probably didn't know that. And I used to always go meet him at the Crusade for Justice. And one thing, Terry Lopez also had a show here. I didn't hear her mention that not once yet. Terry Lopez had a show here. It was the legal, I forgot, legal advice or something like that. I can't remember the name of the show. And it was a big winner. It's like, but she was so busy with all the different things that she was up against. And then Lynn Tran, her show is just, well, let's call her Lynn, Dr. Lynn McDonald. She says, oh, why? I can't say that. I was going to say something about her, but she's looking at me like I better not. And of course, Paul Lane with his show, he's got some dynamic shows here. And Levi, I'm so proud of you, dude. You covered that story up there at the Black Hills. That was something else. I couldn't believe this administration went up there and did I just can't believe he went up there and did that. That was just so mean. It's like, oh, you'll never deface these and all this kind of thing.
Insulting.
The irony of them telling our Native people to go home.
Is that what happened?
Yeah.
They asked your Native people
let's
to go
talk
home?
about the story, because that's how I said, Levi, you're perfect for this show.
Well, the Trumpers, as they call them, they were yelling out to the Native people that are protesting to go home. And I just find that so ironic.
It's like going to your back. Yeah,
we are home. We are home. Every inch of this land was ours.
It's like my house is right over there.
That's horrible. They're on their own land.
It's on my land.
It's right in our backyard. Go home. Did you cover the story about Oklahoma? Half the state is now being given back to the natives. Did you go through that one?
That's for legal reasoning only. It's not like I live in Michigan. I didn't get a flight to Tulsa and say, let me go live there now because it's all our land. It's not exactly like that. It's really it was more of a function of legality, and then I understand that the 5 tribes today have come to an agreement with the state of Oklahoma how to handle those legal jurisdiction things. And I'm not an attorney, maybe Terry knows more about it than I do, but it was really strictly for that. But it still is a very landmark and very, very important decision at the Supreme Court, because very rarely do we get the Supreme Court in particular, to rule on our side, and I think that was very important. And I think that throughout America, that's why we're really excited. I remember being at Standing Rock, and I'm going to back up a little, digress, but back to Standing Rock on the day that the Obama administration made the announcement that he wasn't going to allow the pipeline to go through. The Army Corps of Engineers was not going to grant that permit. And I literally saw Native people crying, grown adults crying, and it was quite emotional for all of us. But as I was there, I kept thinking, we don't get very many victories.
And we see
we
this
just don't.
Yeah,
as Native people, we don't get very many victories, and that's why the grown people. And I remember in particular, I don't know if they were a couple, but they were both military people, male and female, and literally had tears coming down their eyes because it was a victory. And when the announcement came, I said, okay, this is great, but, and I think it was the early part of December of 2016, so I knew like 5 to 6 weeks later, the presidency would change, and I knew what Trump would do, and he did do that, like 3 days after, and reversed that. And so, with the victories we've had, I've actually have been very cautious to say, what kind of pushback will we have? Because I'm not anti-white by any stretch, but I'm going to make this statement. They have a way of always being on top. They want to be in control. Even our allies who have come to our rescue so often. I've been in meetings throughout the years. I used to run the North American Indian Center in Grand Rapids and had some really good friends who were allies, but they always wanted to have the last say. And it may sound bad, but I'm just telling you what the reality is.
And that's the way
it's like the white fathers know best. You know, remember that show?
Yeah, the fathers know best.
The fathers know best. Well, you put that word "white father knows best" in there, and that's really the mentality. And as we go forward as a society, I think it needs to be, we need to share the power, share the wealth, and I think that would help improve things immensely.
And we'd like to say goodbye to Nita Gonzalez. She had another Zoom event that she has to go. So you want to say your goodbyes, and thank you, Nita.
Yes.
There was really a value with the change of the paradigm.
And I'm inviting you to join. We have an action every week called Light Up the Night and Unite.
Okay.
And we light a candle outside each of we have over 6,000 people who light a candle for justice and for equity. And
That's tremendous.
We do a talking circle at 7:30 on our Enough Action Coalition. I put committee, it's coalition, Enough Action Coalition, which is part of a big group that is Asian, Native American, Chicano, Mexicano, Palestinian, Muslim, and we're all part of it. So
now, what's so nice about the paradigm shift here is we have the conduit here, and everybody's been talking about our facility. We've been in business here 14 years, even though everybody says, "Oh, you guys are an overnight sensation." But we have some great individuals here. This conduit is open to the community, and we do so much community projects. It's local, regional, national, and we're international broadcasters. We're all over the world. And so we have our people out in Bangkok, Thailand, as well as in Europe with Peter Hatton. I was going to remember his name. Sorry, Charlie, you can't remember his name, maybe?
Well, good night, and thank you. I call you all justice warriors. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Nina. Thank you for honoring us today with that being on this. And could you give us one bit of wisdom, one bit of that you could give all of us? Because I want to ask everybody before we close, and we're not ready to close, but one bit of wisdom from your life experience to give to everybody. What would it be?
That we remember that we have strength and unity, and that while we are diverse in culture and language, that that we're not diverse in spirit. We're human beings. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Anita. Thank you.
Let's talk to Dr. Lynn McDonald a little more. I want her to give us more information of what she's got to say. I have to log off as well too. Lynn, you want us to give us one more brief, just like what you said?
Yeah, just one little brief. Are you there still, Lynn?
Yes, I am.
You're not going to run out on us just yet.
No, not yet. I do have to learn my little kiddo, and
Yes.
he can only be on screen time for so long while I do this. But yeah, as far as it goes, what was your question, Henry?
It's actually, just something to close off the time, but I always ask whenever, what is one bit of wisdom, from your life experience, one nugget of wisdom that you could give everybody that could benefit and help their life out?
I think the biggest thing is, one life wisdom is to instead of comparing yourself to others, is always, allowing yourself to question about how you can personally grow and do. I'm always about the self-work. It's always about going back inward and how you can heal from inside out. And, one of my mentors had pointed out, it's, as a chiropractor, obviously, we look at spines. So when you take out the millimeters of skin tone and everything else, we look at the blood, we look at the heartbeat, we look at the bone structure. We don't have any tattoos on our, the internal organs that says, hey, you're Asian, or you're black, or you're Latino. We're all very much, the structure is very much a part of that. The way childhood develops, or children are developed, there's no one superior to the other. There's the beauty behind the miracle of life is always there. The biology is always consistent across all races, and so being able to celebrate the miracle of our own being, the miracle of the people that we have in our life as well, is being able to practice gratitude during times where right now there's a lot of uncertainty. Is it's like I was doing dishes today. I'm just like, wow, I'm so grateful that I have food, that now I have to do dishes. I'm so grateful that, it is loud around my house because I'm not alone.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful that, there are lots of hatred, or there's a lot of judgment on Facebook. It's like, wow, I'm so grateful that I have a place to perhaps voice myself, or maybe choose to have connections that people grow, just like Nita has hosted this committee that we can follow. It's like, I'm so grateful that we have resources to turn to, and being very intentional about how we go about our day. That's self-work there, and I think it's, it ties into our own culture. It's like, it ties into our own race, and ties into our community and how we're serving people. And when we are in a fear place, then it's in a place where we're not comfortable in voicing ourselves, or we're defensive, but we're in a place of openness. Willingness to learn, and that continual practice of gratitude will stem to everything else that we're doing in the world as well too. So it's kind of long-winded, but
I love it. I think that's fantastic.
Well, Dr. Lynn, I knew if I got you, I don't want to let her go. She's going to try to fail. Yeah, that's why I knew you were going to pull this out. I knew you were going to do it. That's why we had to have you on here and say your last goodbye before you.
Yes. But thank you, and my son wants to say goodbye too, so say hi.
So sweet.
Thank you, Dr. Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lynn. Well, I think we should have everybody kind of really just speak to this. I think a little bit about what it is that we can do as a culture and as a society right now in this time to move forward. What can we do together to help each other out and to move forward in a way that really makes a difference? So, Marty, I'd love to start with you first, if possible, since we haven't heard from you in a while. I'd love for you to share from the tribal perspective, what we can do together to make our world a better place.
We gotta come to the realization that we are under attack. And when we're under attack, we fight and we use the tools we have at our disposal. You know, we're living through the great age right now, computer age, and our great-grandchildren will say, they wonder what we did in this time. You know, we're able to reach people all over the world, even in this format. You know, to share our views, to talk about subjects, to talk about things that are happening to us as a people. And it seems right now that we are under attack, whether it's a pandemic or the government's, this current administration. And we have to look at what our greatest weapon is, which is the truth. And as a journalist, you know, we always try to put the truth out to the forefront. And there are people out there who will hide the truth, will do anything to bend the truth, to anything to make it look ugly. Because to them it is ugly. They'll even go as far as to kill, to hide the truth. And so it is our duty, our way to bring the truth to the forefront. And by using these tools that we have available, we also have to embrace the education technology that surrounds us. Otherwise, we will be left behind. We'll become something of the past, or we'll become something that serves the food or serves the people, and not somebody at the forefront making decisions, helping the people.
Very well stated, Marty.
Oh, yeah. No,
Thank you, Marty. That was well
beautiful.
stated.
And it's so true. You know, truth is health serum, but we have to be willing to have the eyes to see it. And in order to do that, we can't see with our own eyes anymore. We have to see with the eyes of the heart and the eyes of the soul, and to see beyond. And we can, when we're armed with the truth, we can do something. But when we are bombarded by the distortions, the deceptions, the lies, the things that keep us separated, and the fear-induced ideas that keep us distracted, it's almost, you know, we have to come together and unite and see that for what it is, as an illusion. That's an illusion, and it doesn't have to take control over us. And we can actually see and know in our hearts what the truth is. And it is to help the poor. It is to help those who are hurting and the oppressed. And I'm very moved by your words, Marty. Thank you.
You know, the paradigm shift here, and like everybody's saying, the technological paradigm shift, and we have it in our hands right here.
Yeah.
It's a conduit right here for all of us to utilize, and all of us are utilizing it.
Yeah.
And it's really cool. And like, you know, we were using Zoom 3 years ago.
Yeah, we were trying this out. We were trying to figure it out and see how it worked. And how do we bring in people from all different walks of life and different parts of the country and the world now?
And we brought them in from all the way from Europe. We brought them
Australia. Like a few weeks ago, we brought Orion from Australia. And so how can we make this and utilize this for good?
Yes.
And to be able to be in service to humanity and be able to be a benefit to the whole. And it's an amazing, amazing thing that we've developed.
And Charlie, all these dynamic individuals, I mean, Marty and Levi and you know, everybody who's here. It's like, I can't believe we were able to bring all this talent in here to discuss their thoughts, their knowledge on this forum. And this is just, this forum I've been working on a long time. It was really difficult to put together. It was like,
I love it.
It seemed like it's easy, but it was really difficult to put it together. But there's more to, you know, big other people too that would like to join us and do other things. But it's hard to put these forums together because you know, everybody's speaking their viewpoints and talking about what's going on with this, like you say, pandemic is engulfing everybody. It's just wreaking havoc on the financials of everybody. Their businesses are, you know, they're going out of business. All these variables, and it's hitting a lot of the poor communities.
Well, we're going through not only a health crisis, but an economic crisis, social crisis, and now we're moving into politics. We're going to go into the political
Oh my
crisis.
God.
I mean, we're just getting, you know, it's like, but I think it'll be interesting to see what historians have to write about us at
Yes.
this time. Now, 100 years from now, what are they going to write about us and the choices we made and the decisions and the good choices and the bad choices and what we took? It's going to be very interesting, and to be alive right now, I think, is pretty extraordinary.
And Charlie,
We have an opportunity to do something that no generation before us has been able to
Ever,
do.
yeah.
And we have to capitalize it, because otherwise they will try to keep us separated, I believe.
And you're doing a 10-part series, a show, 10-part series on PTSD and the veterans and that type of thing, right?
Yes, I am. Starting next week, we're doing, it's been so blessed to work with the Trauma Sensitive Awareness Foundation, 10 series, it's a Veteran Summit series, bringing in these experts and research on how to help veterans heal through trauma.
And in every walk of life
PTSD.
is in the veterans, I mean, there's Black, Chicano, Latino.
Oh, absolutely.
Everybody is.
Everybody who's has fought that.
That's right.
The Native American community has.
There's no color in this.
There's no color in this. It has no trauma. It has no divide, and it's
No.
not. It doesn't discriminate.
And it's the military of
yeah.
the United States government
Yeah.
that has brought this about.
Well, trauma is something that has been going on since war. So it's not
War.
necessarily
Yeah,
that
that's right, yeah,
war has
yeah.
been going on, and that's what's created that.
The war.
And actually, the Native Americans understood to how to heal their warriors. They would bring it in, and they would put them into. I think it was the. I can't remember the tribe right now, but they would bring their warriors into the center of the tribe, and they weren't allowed to go and communicate or talk to their families or have food or engage in any sex or
help them
anything.
heal.
They had to heal, and they had to be met with and talk to elder warriors and the medicine men, and being able to purge all of the toxins and the things that happen in war, the loss of life, the grief, the mourning, until that all got cleansed, because they did not want to pollute the tribe. Ancient Greece had the same kind of a thing. You could find it even in the Bible, where they were able to try to, they isolated the warriors
So they
for
can
times.
heal.
But we don't do that, so we were polluting our families and our system, and so healing trauma is a very integrated and complex issue.
They
You
come
have to
home,
treat
they want to beat
the
their
whole person.
wives.
Well, they don't want to, but that's what ends up happening
Yeah.
because of the
Yes.
trauma that's going on. You know, it's something that the pain, it hurts so bad, and then something comes out, and so, anyway.
What are we getting that from?
The background sound?
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Somebody moving some glasses or cups or anything back there? Or... It stopped. Okay, we can say our last goodbyes if you'd like.
We would love for everybody, I mean, this has been...
Fantastic.
This has been awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, this has been really fantastic. I would love for everybody, please, to just share some final thoughts, and being able to, like with the other guests that I had just left, to share one bit of wisdom from your life experience that you could share with our audience, and just some final thoughts for those that are tuning in, not only here in Denver, but also all across the nation and all across the world. What few words would you like to leave our audience with? And I'd love to begin. Let's start with Paul. Go ahead, Paul, since you're on the screen right now.
Well, the first thing that I think that I would like to convey or to work on is common ground. Without unity, divided we fall. So we have to find unity. We have to find some way, even with the Trump supporters, they're going to be here after this next election, whoever wins. And so I think this division that's been going on has to end. The other thing is, I've heard it said that as metal sharpens metal, the mind of one man sharpens the mind of another. It is time for us to put our heads together, stick with it, and work through it. And if we don't persist, we're going to fade out. And so this is a movement that has to get momentum, but it has to continue with that momentum. Once the momentum starts, we are going to make effective change from top to bottom. And so I think persistence is really essentially what I think I would like to convey in this setting.
Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate that very much. And Let's go, Levi. Could you share with us your viewpoint and final thoughts, words of wisdom that you could share with us and our audience so that it can?
Is that I get older, one word comes to my mind a lot, and it's the word balance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that so often we don't find that right balance. And so many of us have worked very hard on behalf of our communities for a long time, but maybe didn't spend enough time with our children when they were small. And so you think about that in terms of what's needed is we need to find that right balance between community, with family, church, however you want to say it. And I think I think it's really important for us to get to that balance in life. And even within ourselves, we have enough time to go and reflect and really think about what we're doing. A lot of us need downtime. I think about that. There's a scripture that says, "Be still and know that I am God." And all of us have these cell phones. How many of us really turn those things off? I'm not sure God meant for us to have so many conversations in life. I think there's time to have some balance and to really reflect on what's really important to us, what's important for our communities as we move forward.
Mm-hmm. I think that's so important. And you're right. We need to take that quiet time within. To be silent, to commune, I mean, however you pray to God, however you see that, I think it's such an important thing. It keeps us centered, it keeps us balanced, and we need that now more than ever, I think, Levi. So true. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's, Terry, how about you? What would you like to add as we close? Final words of wisdom, and after Terry, let me see, I think, and then Marty would be the last. So Terry first, and then Marty.
No, I wanted to be a lawyer from a very young age, and I think from that, the reason for that is because I really have always wanted to just march right through the adversity. Let me figure out how to do this, give me the tools, let me learn how. Let me help others to come along the way. And so that's what I would like to leave everyone with is how do we bring others along the way with us? The other thing I will just throw in real quickly, I had the opportunity to sit in on another forum the other day, and I don't know if, Marty, you might know this person, Kadir Nelson is an illustrator. And he illustrated a children's book called The Undefeated. And this children's book was written by a journalist. His name is Kwame Alexander. He's often on TV. But he wrote this book, and the book is to help teach anti-Black racism to children. But it's a wonderful, wonderful book for all of us, for adults as well as children of all ages. And in the illustrations, what was really amazing, Marty, that's why I'm bringing this up, in the illustrations, throughout the book, they talk about the dark times and slavery and all of the history of the Black community population within the United States, and from the history forward, and how change was made. And so the illustrations in the book, as it starts out, have a really dark tone, negative tone, but as you move forward through the years and through the generations, the illustrations in the book start to show triumph, and the illustrations become brighter, and it's an amazing book, and the illustrations are really amazing to go along with it. And so when I look back in my life, when I think about the really difficult times when I was a young woman, a young activist trying to get into college, and all of the police brutality back then was a huge thing here in Denver. I remember writing so many papers in college about police brutality, and as a political science major, and where we're at now, and where we've come through over these years. And I had the opportunity to participate in that forum. That book is called The Undefeated, and I would recommend it to everyone to look at it if you're thinking about where things are right now with this anti-black racism and how we're responding to the recent events.
Well, thank you, Terry. That it is important. We need to be, anti-racist. That's come on. That is, and our children. When you look at children, if they have to be taught to be racist.
They don't have no clue.
They have no clue. They just, it's my friend. They don't. It's like, it's my. They don't care.
They didn't do that to me.
Just kidding. But it is so vitally important to show. So thank you, Terry, for that and for being here on the show. Marty, we'd love for you to share your last words of wisdom with us, sir, and I will leave the forum to you now.
Well, one thing I'd like to bring up is that bigots are cowards. Bigots will attack people that are weak. They'll attack women, they'll attack children, and they'll hesitate to attack someone like me. Now, what they use as a weapon is words and things that they can clout and racism and whatnot. And one thing that the philosophy pushes forward is that we live in a duality. It's up or down, yes or no, man, woman, life or death. But none of these are in opposition. So they're opposites without opposition. One thing we must learn is that we give people the power over us. And so that means we can take it away. So a lot of what we have to explore comes from ourselves. We have to look into the mirror and find a place, find a peace within yourself before we can move forward. And we as a people, when we have enough of us like this, then there's nothing we can't do. That's why.
Well said.
Well, thank you.
What a dynamic forum. And thank you, Charlie. You put on such a dynamic forum. As part of KUHS, I'm always so proud of you because I always tell you, he's got such a great vocabulary, and that's why I was having him co-moderate. I always say he never leaves home without it.
It's up there. I can't change it. So.
And everybody who joined us, I was so happy that you all said yes, and having you all on here is a treat. It's like, I was so happy to get you all to say yes, and to put it together, it takes a lot because of our platform is so big. And a lot of people don't realize that KUHS has been around a long time. And we've been utilizing the technologies like we talk about, and we've been using Zoom when it first came out, so we've been doing this for a long, long time. We have the wealth of this beautiful studio here, and all the technologies that come along with it, and we get this do all types of things. And being the conduit for KUHS, Charlie, I thank you for doing this for us.
Oh my God, this was incredible. This is outstanding. This was such an honor. I'm so honored and privileged and humbled by this opportunity to be with these people and to share this.
Like everybody.
I learned so much today.
Me too. It's like just
I learned so
everybody.
much just by listening to everybody. I was very moved by it, and thank you for giving me the opportunity.
And Terry and Paul and Levi, Marty, who's still here, and everybody else who left us right now, Dr. Lynn and Nita.
Yeah.
And the others that couldn't make it, I wish they could have. You would have got to meet them too. And with that being said, I'm going to walk out of here so I can close out the show.
And that's it.
Yeah.
And we'll come back to KUHS. There's.
And so everybody knows. A lot of people, you guys probably want to know, our reach is 110,000 people, audio-wise around the world. Video-wise. We're on like all the different platforms. You have to add up all the different amounts of people listening and watching and whatever. And it really amounts to quite a bit of people who are here watching us. And we've developed it over the years. And thanks to one of your shows, it's going. You got to see that.
It's the guest.
It is the guest. You bring some very exciting guests here. And, all the other shows that we have here, everybody brings exciting guests.
Yeah, there's some fantastic shows here. So
we'll back off. And,
all right.
Peace be to you, sir. Peace be to everybody. And I'll close out the show. Your last words of wisdom from you, Charlie.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone, again, for sharing your time with us today and taking these precious moments to share with all the world here your thoughts and your feelings at this very important time in our history and in our world. And it is forums like this, where we talk about real issues, where we talk about what's really happening with people, that helps us to overcome the fear, overcome the divide, overcome the separation, overcome those intergenerational and historical traumas and bigotry and the things that keep us divided and separated and not making the changes that we need to make as a people. And we are given an opportunity right now to do something we've never been able to do before, and that's really to unite the tribes, unite the generations, unite the world. And because this is something that's affecting the entire globe. No one's immune to this. We're all being affected by it, which requires of us to make choices that include all of us. One of the biggest mystical truths out there is that we're all one. We're all one. All right, at the deepest fundamental core of existence, we're one. All right, we may have diversity all around us. That's the beauty of life. But we're at the core and the essence of our existence, we're one. And all life breathes together. That's another one. If you think about it, every breath you take, you're breathing with the life that is around you and the people that are with you. And when we can share that and really connect to those deeper truths, we're going to make better choices that includes everybody. And we're going to have justice for everybody. And we're going to have a world that's prosperous for all. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to our show today, this social issues forum with all these amazing, amazing guests. I am so honored to have been the host today, the co-moderator. Thank you so much for tuning in to KUHS Denver. May you all be well. May you all be free of pain and suffering. May you all be whole. God bless, folks. We'll see you again very soon.